Jó napot kívánok a Mandinernek nézőjének, Kohán Mátyás vagyok, és itt vagyunk Miami Beach-en Dave Reaboival, amerikai nemzetbiztonsági elemzővel, akivel arról a néhány dologról fogunk beszélgetni, amihez igazán ért, Floridáról és a világból. Szia, Dave!
Szia!
So, Dave, how would you explain Florida to Hungarians? We have had some news about how some moves by Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, have been copied from Orbán. There have been some news about Florida being the new conservative capital of the US. What is Florida, to do an elevator pitch to Hungary?
Oh boy, Florida is paradise. Florida is paradise. It is governed very well by Ron DeSantis. Basically, what DeSantis has done in Florida is take seriously everything that conservative voters have wanted all throughout the country over the last 40 years, and actually done the things. So the quality of life is fantastic. The personal freedom is amazing. Obviously, you have the weather that sells itself, but also you have no taxes here. You have during COVID, a lot of people came here because obviously all because of the weather, but also because of the freedom. And what you have is you've got wonderful schools. You have just up and down. Florida has been number one in by almost any metric. Florida's balancing the budget. Florida is doing things that other states really could not do. And Florida is a big state. And usually what happens is that conservative states or red states are traditionally they've been a little smaller, and the bigger states were blue states, the higher population states. And Florida is amazing because it's a model of how a very big state, bigger than New York, can in fact be a red state and do the things that conservative voters want. So it's really amazing. Sometimes it gets a little hot. But people like it, and people like not having to deal with the snow and all the expense of living other places. So they move here.
Just asking you for a secret in this blistering sunlight. Is it really true that there are some elements of conservative policy that Florida and Ron DeSantis may have copied from Hungary?
Yeah, I think when people ask that, it's most of the time they have an agenda when they ask. And they're trying,
I would never have that.
Right, but they're trying to tie DeSantis to a caricature of what Orbán is, what Hungary is. So they've already made Orbán the villain. They want the that villainy to rub off a little bit on DeSantis, and they do the same thing with Donald Trump, of course. But there is like an answer. There is fundamentally something in common, which is that. It's like an unapologetic responsiveness to the voters who want these policies, and an unwillingness. I'll say this: an unwillingness to bend to elite media, left wing narratives. We just see the world differently, and we're not necessarily going to cower, and we're not going to keep apologizing for not being far left. Radicals. We're going to say, no, actually, we have, this position, and this is a conservative position, and this is what we do unapologetically. And it's that attitude that they have in common, more than anything. And yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's pretty simple and self-evident, but that's what it is.
You're one of the best people to talk to if you want to know about what the US is doing in the wider world. I would just ask you about something that Hungarians care deeply about, and that's Donald Trump's Ukraine policy. Is it your understanding that Trump's offer has been declined by Vladimir Putin, and that Trump is swaying pro-Ukraine right now? What's happening in Trump's Ukraine policy?
I think Donald Trump right now in this term is kind of getting a dose of authentic realism, which is another word for reality. And it's not necessarily that he's, shifting between Ukraine and Russia. It's that he worked very hard. His administration worked very hard to put together some kind of ceasefire to end the war. And, Putin has been resistant to doing that when the Ukrainians have been, coming to the table. And look, I mean, at the end of the day, if it's Ukraine or if it's Iran or Gaza or whatever, there's not going to be a ceasefire. There's not war because people just decided, hey, let's make a war. There's going to be a ceasefire when the parties decide it's in their interest to not fight rather than to secure their goals through fighting. So, I don't think it's necessarily a thing that that the United States has that much control over. I mean, we can sway things, a few degrees here and there and try to change the incentive structure for either party. But at the end of the day, if Russia wants to continue the war, if Ukraine, feels that it needs to continue the war for, national security reasons on either side, that's what's going to happen. And, if Donald Trump or any other American president says, hey, stop, Biden, tried the same with different conflicts around the world. It never works until the parties are, have decided that they can no longer pursue their interests through those particular means. So they're going to decide when it's time to stop.
One thing that appealed to many people, including Hungarians in Europe, about Trump's first term is that he did not launch any new wars. What do you think Trump's stance is on wars in general? How does he see wars as a tool of U.S. foreign policy?
Well, Trump had a slogan from 2016 on to this day, and it resonated, which is "No more stupid wars." And I think some people heard the emphasis on stupid, and some people heard the emphasis on wars. And I think if you're Donald Trump, it's self-evident that he means stupid is the key word. But it's also a recognition that this world has changed, and you don't necessarily need to fight wars the way we fought wars before. You don't need a massive invasion of a country like Iraq, and to spend 2 decades there in order to secure your national interests. That doesn't mean, on the other side, that you say, what, we're never going to launch another missile ever. That's crazy. But there is a middle road. And frankly, what the United States and Israel were able to accomplish in regards to Iran, there was no invasion. There was precision strikes to accomplish a very specific goal regarding the nuclear program, regarding ballistic missiles, regarding Iran's ability to offensively project power either on its own or through its proxies. So that problem was dealt with without an invasion, without massive body counts. But I think Donald Trump sees that model, and he says, yeah, I mean, that could work. And I think he's right. I think that's reasonable. I don't think it's reasonable for example, some people, on the right or in Trump's base to say, Donald Trump, no new wars. That means we're never going to drop another bomb. We're never going to do anything. We're going to become total peaceniks. We're going to be like hippies from the 60s. Well, no, because his first term, he didn't start wars, but he took out ISIS. He took out Soleimani. He did quite a few, clandestine operations in Africa and Yemen and these places that, most of us will never hear about. But that's not necessarily wars. So when you're the United States and you have, you're the world superpower and you do have interests, sometimes you need to use force to deal with those. And I don't think Donald Trump is adverse to that. He's adverse to being saddled with a massive occupation that frankly doesn't really even need to happen in the world today anymore.
So I'm asking now a man who has profound understanding about what's going on in the Middle East right now. How close do you think we are to the end game on Iran, the Iran nuclear program, and the Israel-Iran conflict?
I don't think we'll ever get to an end game until until the Iranian regime, the Islamic Republic, is gone, and it's no longer, that country is run by by Iranians that don't organize their entire politics on how are we going to destroy Israel and the United States. Once that's gone, then you'll have an end game. But until the Iranians decide to rise up, the only thing you can really do is keep track of where they are in terms of using and developing the weapons that that they could potentially use against Israel, against the United States, against Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, etc. So I think they're being watched very closely right now, and I know the Israelis and pretty much I think the Trump administration has bought into the idea that Iran is going to be kind of like Lebanon, in the sense that there's a ceasefire, but anytime Hezbollah moves and tries to resupply, they're going to get whacked. And I think you're seeing the same thing playing out over here, which is really the way to do it, because at the end of the day, if you want the people to rise up against that regime, they will do it, because it's not going to be tomorrow, it's not going to be next week, but eventually they will do it, because this particular regime, the Islamic Republic, does nothing for Iranians. It does absolutely nothing for Iranians. And if you take away their ability to make war on the United States and Israel and to terrorize the region, they have nothing. They don't have an economy. They don't have they don't have a foreign policy outside of that. They don't have a domestic policy outside of that. Everything is geared towards that. So once their ability to project power that way is decimated, which it is right now, people are going to say, what are we getting for all this? Like, what's stopping us from, aside from the secret police, and the besieged militias, what's stopping us from really toppling this and getting a government in there that represents us?
Dave, thanks a lot for taking the time today. Best of luck to you, Mr. Florida.
Köszönöm szépen.
Köszönjük szépen.